name is Ariel from the Children of Karma, and today I'd like to discuss Sun and Jupiter aspects. This aspect is concerned with transcending fate, transcending death. So they're focused on creating a legacy for themselves. This aspect can also be a famous authority figure. So it's interesting actually to look at the exalted spaces of these planets. The Sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, which is a very individual, very much me-focused kind of sign. And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which is very much a we, us, family kind of sign. So this is where the conflict is with this aspect. It's maybe you have your own personal desires, your own daimon, your sun, something that you need to chase. And then, you're focused also on the higher thoughts, how does this impact the collective, and how Jupiter is associated with laws and philosophy and beliefs. So it's thinking about the greater collective in this way, as far as how to properly guide them, how to properly educate them through spirituality, through philosophy. But some difficulties with this aspect would be commitment. It's very difficult to commit if you have aspects like this, or you have, for example, your sun in the 9th house. Very difficult to commit. This aspect is an adventurer, an explorer. So those relationships or the things that kind of bog down this sign can really limit them from that exploration, that journey. They have to be willing to accept any kind of new opportunity that comes along. And so these other things, they can kind of hold them back from that exploration. And if we look at Zeus, for example, Zeus represents Jupiter and his relationship style. I mean, I think that says it all. That just Zeus liked to spread his seed around, and it was difficult for him to commit. But he did commit actually to Hera, goddess Hera, and she acted kind of like a Saturn, like a backbone for him. And if you think about vines and how they grow, how they need a certain amount of structure in order to grow, but when they do have that structure, they really like bloom to certain sizes that you wouldn't even imagine. They really take over the space, but just a little bit of structure, they need that. When it doesn't have that structure, it can become lazy, it can slack off a little. It needs to have something grounding it. Also, if you think about Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and this is often associated with Chiron. Chiron, the half man, half horse, he's half mystical. He's half in another world. And, the human part is stuck here, which can kind of be a wounding within of this aspect. And even Sagittarius energy, it's just a wounding to be stuck within the practical, within the material realm, when they're so focused on higher thought and philosophy and exploring thought. So at some point, this aspect will find either a relationship or a purpose, a career that becomes that Hera, that thing that grounds you and that you're very much devoted to. It's interesting as well that children of Zeus also had these Sagittarian qualities, like the 3 graces, for example, and they were about justice and morality. And this sign, this aspect can be associated with justice. Maybe there's a career or identity that's associated with finding justice. Being associated with Chiron, he's the wounded healer. He had a wounded foot. This wounding kind of keeps you stuck in the physical. And sometimes this aspect can deal with physical issues, even ones that are underneath the surface, that are just growing slowly, and maybe you're a bit unaware. But that physical pain, that physical wounding can force an extroverted person to view inward, move inward and explore self, explore those deeper, more profound philosophical questions that you have. it can force you inward because that movement is limited as well, you know? So it's like you have to, if you can't travel with your body, you travel with the mind, finding ways to transcend death. But this physical injury can pull you back in to the physical and remind you that the body, though, is mortal. You know, what you create, though, the things that you create and you leave behind, that legacy, that is what is immortal. And there's a process when you're creating something. During that process, you're finding yourself. There's self-development throughout this process. And, you know, sometimes with this Jupiter, we can be concerned about others and what they think. And sometimes hesitation. If we do hesitate, though, to explore that creative process, then that self-development, that growth that comes from that stems from this creation, it's all lost. I think it's important to emphasize the journey with this aspect, the journey, the quest. You're looking for something, but you don't necessarily know what the destination is. And, you know, sometimes the destination can also change, we may not know where we're going, but if we do start the walk, you know, the path becomes clearer. We start to see the lanes opening up. Where should we go? And it becomes clear. And more lanes start opening the more we walk down that path. So it's important to focus on that. And don't be so concerned about where exactly it is that you're going, but just move forward. And movement even can generate these philosophical pathways within our minds. We think better when we're walking, when we're in nature as well, when we're listening. These using our senses can really open up these sort of philosophical pathways that this aspect really enjoys. This is a philosophical person, a scholar, someone who can earn from their ideas. And it's important to foster that, to nurture that with this aspect. Thank you for joining me for this video, and I'd love to see you at thechildrenofkarma.com, where we can find ancestral patterns. Aspects are spectrums of energy that are movable, and sometimes we just don't realize that we can move within them. It's not like they're giving us a destiny or a fate. They're giving us a symbol, you know. Here's the symbol, Sun Jupiter aspect. Here, go, do something with it. What are you going to do with it? You know, it's a wide array of things that you can do with this aspect, and you have the choice in how you choose to express that. So I think calling to those planets through practical daily devotion, it helps us to move within that sphere. It helps us to connect to these energies, be aware of them as they're happening so that we can better manipulate, move within them, work with the system rather than trying to work against it. Thank you. Don't forget to like the video. Bye.